You take a final breath. Not dramatic, not loud, just a slow release, the kind that feels like the body has decided it's done carrying weight. The room around you blurs. Every sound stretches, like echoes inside water. You hear someone calling your name, or maybe it's only memory speaking back. Then silence. The heart stops, but inside your skull, something extraordinary begins. For 7 minutes, your brain refuses to accept the end. It flares with color, light, electricity, a final rebellion against oblivion. Neurons that once shaped your first kiss, your first fall, your first word, ignite together. A storm of meaning surges through the dark. You see flashes, a mother's voice, sunlight through a window, a laugh you thought you'd forgotten. It all rushes back, faster than you can name it. Science has seen this too. In 2022, doctors recorded brain activity after a patient's heart had already stopped. For exactly 7 minutes, the mind sparked like a constellation, as if replaying a lifetime. And when they studied the data, one strange pattern appeared again and again. The rhythm of memory. You're no longer breathing, yet your brain behaves as if you've never been more alive. Why? Some researchers call it the life review. Others think it's the final surge of energy before the cells collapse. But what if it's something else, something deeper? What if, in those 7 minutes, consciousness is trying to save itself, rebuilding the universe one memory at a time? Every face you loved, every place you stood still long enough to feel small, every choice you regret or never made, all of it returns, not as a story you remember, but as a world you re-enter. Inside the skull, oxygen falls, but neurons refuse surrender. They fire wildly, synchronizing into waves known as gamma oscillations. The same rhythm your mind uses when you dream, imagine, or recall. In that rhythm, the past collapses into the present. A moment from childhood can exist beside your final heartbeat. Time folds like paper. Have you ever woken from a dream that felt longer than the night itself? That's what's happening now. A dream packed into 7 minutes of eternity. So here you are, between one heartbeat and the next. The body still, but the mind alive. Floating in the space where science meets soul. And as the lights of your memories swirl around you, a question begins to whisper through the noise. If your brain can relive an entire life in 7 minutes after death, what exactly is it trying to show you? Is it remembrance or rebirth? Is it a recording or the beginning of another story? The final signal has only just begun. You feel a pulse, not from your chest, that's gone, but somewhere deeper, like the universe itself just inhaled through you. Colors form where there should be dark. They twist into fragments. The pattern on your childhood blanket, the shadow of a door left slightly open, the smell of rain that once meant home. Everything arrives at once, billions of fragments trying to remind you that you were here. You don't see them one after another. You are them. And somewhere inside that storm of memory, a question takes shape. How can you remember anything if you're already gone? Scientists once believed death was an abrupt end. The lights switch off and that's it. But now they've seen something different. A symphony that rises in the brain the moment the heart stops. Electrical bursts sweep through the cortex in perfect waves, as if the neurons have rehearsed for this moment their entire lives. One researcher called it the brain's last orchestra. It's as though every cell knows the final piece by heart, each firing not in panic, but in unison, conducted by some silent memory of what it means to be alive. Maybe that's what consciousness is. Not thought, not awareness, but music. Pattern that refuses silence. You see yourself standing by a window, not as a ghost, but as an idea remembering itself. The scene is ordinary. You, coffee in hand, the same view you've seen 1,000 times. But now every detail glows with impossible meaning. The way light bends through the glass, the dust floating like small galaxies, the warmth of the mug that once felt too hot. In the real world, your neurons are collapsing. Yet inside this moment, you've never been clearer. Your mind is rewriting time. Doctors studying dying brains have noticed something strange. Those gamma waves, the ones linked to insight, dreaming, memory, surge just as oxygen disappears. By every biological rule, they shouldn't. But they do. One theory suggests it's the mind's final attempt to integrate itself, to gather every experience and make sense of the life it just lived, like a computer compressing all data before shutdown. Another theory whispers something more unsettling, that consciousness isn't produced by the brain, it's only transmitted through it, and when the transmitter fails, the signal returns to its source. If that were true, then death isn't the loss of the self, it's the self returning to everywhere at once. Images keep arriving, faster. A childhood friend whose name you forgot, a hallway you ran through after school, the echo of laughter bouncing off stone. You can smell the dust, taste the air, feel the rhythm of your feet, all at once. Neurologists call this panoramic memory activation, the total recall of sensory networks across the cortex. But to you, it doesn't feel like recall. It feels like time itself unraveling, giving you every version of yourself to hold, just for a second, before everything dissolves again. You realize something: memory isn't in the past. It's a place you can go back to, especially when there's nowhere else left to go. The storm begins to slow. The light dims into a single thread stretching ahead, pulsing gently. Instinct tells you to follow it. Every story you've heard about tunnels and light feels suddenly less like myth and more like biology, the visual cortex's last surge of energy, painting meaning onto darkness. But as you move closer, the distinction between science and soul blurs. You're not walking through light, you're being remembered by it. And somewhere, perhaps on a hospital monitor, the flat line hums. But in here, inside those 7 endless minutes, you are still unfolding. The images settle into still water. For the first time, you see yourself reflected in it. Not the face you wore today, but every version you ever carried. Child, dreamer, stranger, friend. They overlap like ripples folding into one another. Neuroscience calls it integrated self-perception, the brain trying to weave all its stories into one thread before the network quiets. To you, it feels like standing before a mirror that shows everything you've ever been afraid to remember. The mind isn't just looking back. It's measuring your life against the weight of its own awareness. Have you ever felt that sudden flash? A moment where the past and present collide for no reason? That's a small rehearsal of what happens now. Memory turning itself inside out to prove that it existed. Inside your brain, billions of synapses bloom and vanish each second. They've always done this, wiring and unwiring as you learned, loved, forgot. In these final moments of electrical harmony, they fire together one last time, building a temporary architecture. A cathedral made of everything you once knew. If scientists could translate it into sound, it might resemble static mixed with a symphony, chaos shaped into pattern. They call this global neural synchronization, the last conversation between every region of the brain. Imagine every word you ever spoke echoing once more, just to see if it still belongs to you. Emotion doesn't disappear, it amplifies. The limbic system, the core of feeling, still vibrates with chemical residue. Love, regret, wonder, fear, all present, all shimmering in chemical light. This is why so many who return from near-death describe overwhelming peace, or forgiveness, or beauty that can't be named. It isn't fantasy. It's biology performing poetry. The same dopamine and endorphins that carried you through first love and small joys now flood the cortex again. A final attempt to balance pain with meaning. Maybe that's the brain's mercy. It lets you leave with the taste of light still in your mouth. Here's the strange part. Physics tells us time doesn't flow. It exists all at once. Your brain simply reads it frame by frame like a film. So when that reading mechanism falters, the sequence breaks. Past and present overlap. Those 7 minutes could feel infinite because, to consciousness, they are. A second can contain a lifetime when there's no clock left to measure it. And perhaps that's why so many near-death accounts speak of eternity. Not because eternity begins, but because time ends. Activity slows. Gamma waves fade into slower theta rhythms. The same you drift through in deep meditation or dreamless sleep. Scientists call this the threshold phase, the last measurable echo of awareness. But something curious remains. A faint coherence that refuses to flatten. Like the faint hum of an old radio still tuned to a station no one broadcasts anymore. Is it just noise? Or is it consciousness lingering, waiting to be received elsewhere? No one can answer that yet. Every study ends at the same mystery. The signal stops, but the story doesn't. The light that guided you through the storm now fades to a glow small enough to fit inside your own chest. Pulses once, slow, calm, and you realize it's not a tunnel. It's a heartbeat. Maybe the heart was never the engine of life, but the echo of awareness itself. And in that realization, the flood of images dissolves into stillness. The 7 minutes are almost over. Yet in this silence, there's the faintest feeling of being watched, gently, curiously, as if the universe is waiting to see what you'll remember next. You open your eyes into a place that isn't quite light or dark. It feels like thought made visible, a room built out of fragments. Every sound you ever loved plays at once. Laughter in another language, the clink of a glass, a song you forgot you knew. This isn't heaven or dream. It's what scientists call reverberation. Signals echoing through the hippocampus long after the stimulus is gone. In the language of the brain, remembering is reliving. Your neurons don't store the past. They rebuild it, moment by moment. Have you ever smelled something that pulled you back 10 years in a second? That's a small version of what you're walking through now. Every scent, every color, every word you spoke. Alive again, because electricity still knows their shape. Researchers once described nostalgia as a reward circuit misfire. But maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the universe reminding you it never forgot. When you remember a scene, the same parts of the brain that first experienced it light up again. You don't look at the memory. You return to it. That's why nostalgia can ache. Your mind isn't watching the past. It's standing inside it, out of phase with time. And here, where time itself is folding, that ache becomes a door. The pattern of these final signals resembles REM sleep. Rapid, rhythmic, creative. In dreams, your brain rehearses reality. In dying, it seems to review it. Neuroscientists have noticed that dream networks and memory networks share the same architecture. That may be why people who wake from near death often say, "It felt real, more real than life." Could it be that the last dream is simply the brain freeing itself from chronology? What if consciousness, once unbound by heartbeat, slips into the same theater where dreams are born, only now there's no need to wake up? Emotion glues memory together. Moments without feeling fade. Moments with love or fear stay. That means the story you call your life is actually an emotional map, a constellation drawn by chemistry. In laboratory scans, scientists see bursts of activity in the amygdala just before full cortical silence. It's as if the mind tries to sign its own name one last time, to say, "I felt this." Have you ever wondered why the memories that come first are the ones with heart? Maybe emotion isn't a side effect of consciousness. Maybe it's the code that keeps consciousness coherent. Around the world, stories of the life review sound eerily alike. People from different cultures describing the same light, the same peace, the same widening of awareness. Coincidence? Or collective design? Some physicists believe consciousness is a field, like gravity, always present, never created or destroyed. If that's true, then every human mind is a temporary lens, and when the lens breaks, the light continues everywhere. You start to sense that. Every face in your memory seems alive at once. Not gone, just seen from the other side of the glass. Maybe you were never a single person moving through time. Maybe you were time moving through the idea of a person. The thoughts that shaped you, the moments you called choices, all playing out inside a consciousness that has no edge. And in these quiet minutes beyond minutes, you realize that nothing is truly lost. It just changes the way it's remembered. The glow that filled your mind softens to a calm horizon. You feel weight returning, not of body, but of understanding. Everything you've seen, everything you've felt, begins to converge into one simple question. If memory can rebuild reality, what will it build next? A hum fills the silence again. Not heart, not brain, but something vaster. The signal hasn't vanished. It's becoming something new. You're still here, but here is not what it used to be. There's no weight, no temperature, no sound, only awareness. It feels like floating inside a mirror that reflects not your face, but your thoughts. They shimmer around you like fragments of light, love, fear, regret, laughter, all suspended in perfect balance. You try to move, but realize movement doesn't exist here. Where could you go when everywhere you've ever been now lives inside you? And then, from the silence, something begins to unfold. Not a voice, but a knowing. Something vast and strangely familiar. It doesn't speak. It reminds you. Every truth you've ever ignored, every kindness you gave or withheld, returns, not as judgment but as understanding. You see how each decision rippled outward, shaping moments you never knew existed. The smile you gave a stranger that changed their day. The harsh word you spoke that lingered in someone's silence. Here, cause and effect are no longer separate. They're visible, intertwined like threads of light. Science might call this the brain's final attempt to create meaning, a full system replay designed to make peace with itself. But standing in this timeless place, it doesn't feel mechanical. It feels intelligent, intentional, as if consciousness itself has been waiting for this reunion all along. You look around, and time begins to melt. Events don't follow each other anymore. They overlap. You see your first breath and your last in the same instant. Your childhood bedroom floats beside the hospital room you just left. The timeline you once called life now spirals into a glowing pattern, like a galaxy folding into itself. It's beautiful and terrifying, because suddenly you realize time was never outside you. It was your brain's way of spacing out experience so you could survive it. Now that the brain's filters are gone, reality rushes in all at once. Infinite, fluid, alive. Have you ever experienced déjà vu so strong it felt impossible? Maybe it wasn't a glitch. Maybe it was a memory of this, the place where everything connects. In 2022, researchers recorded something extraordinary. A dying man's brain showed synchronized waves, the same neural rhythm seen during dreaming, remembering, and meditating, for 30 seconds after his heart stopped. Think about that. When the body was silent, the mind became most alive. The regions that replay memory and imagination were still dancing, as if the universe gave consciousness one final stage, a curtain call before the lights fade. But here's the twist. What if those final seconds feel like eternity inside the mind? If perception slows to infinity when oxygen fades, then those 7 minutes might feel like forever. A lifetime within a lifetime. Maybe that's why near-death experiencers say, "I was gone for hours," even though it was only moments. Maybe forever isn't an afterlife. Maybe it's what happens when time stops counting. You start to sense something deeper. That consciousness doesn't belong to you, you belong to it. The more you remember, the more the boundary between you and everything else dissolves. You realize the people you loved were never separate. They were reflections of the same awareness, playing different roles so you could learn something only separation could teach. Imagine two mirrors facing each other. Infinite reflections, each one slightly different, each one real. That's consciousness observing itself through billions of lives. You were one of them, a single reflection in an endless hall of mirrors. And now, the mirror is realizing it was never glass, it was light. Let's pause here. If consciousness is energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed, then death isn't destruction. It's transition. Physicists studying quantum information have found something remarkable. Information, even when matter disappears, can't be erased. It just changes form. So what are you made of? Information. Memories, feelings, awareness, encoded patterns in neurons and light. When the body dissolves, the pattern may simply disperse. Like a wave returning to the ocean, you don't end. You merge, and the ocean remembers every ripple. Now the visuals around you begin to shift. What looked like stars become neurons, and what looked like neurons become galaxies. You realize they were the same thing seen from different scales. The universe is fractal, self-repeating, self-aware. Every cell, every thought, every solar system, a microcosm of the same pattern, breathing in and out in unison. You were never small. You were the pattern itself, exploring what it means to be finite. Every tear, every laugh, every moment of doubt. The universe learning how to feel. The scene around you fades into a single pulse of light, then multiplies again billions of times. Each pulse is a life, a story, a possibility. Some are you, some are not, but all are connected by a thread of recognition, a shared hum, like a heartbeat that doesn't need a body. You understand now that death is not an ending. It's memory waking up to itself, the universe remembering what it's made of. Maybe that's what the 7 minutes are, the brain rejoining that universal memory, returning its data to the source, like a wave folding back into the tide. And maybe, just maybe, that's why people say they see their entire life flash before their eyes, because they're returning it back to where it all began. But there's one more secret here. Not everyone stays in the light. Some wake up again, back in a hospital bed, gasping, reborn into the same body. Others, perhaps, awaken somewhere new, somewhere that feels strangely familiar. What if that's what reincarnation truly means? Not a mystical loop, but consciousness re-experiencing itself through another perspective. A continuation of learning, remembering, and evolving until every fragment of awareness knows itself completely. Maybe you return, not as punishment, not as reward, but because the story isn't finished yet. Think about the people still alive, the ones who will one day stand where you stand now. They'll hold your memory like you held others. They'll feel your absence, but they won't know they're still connected to you through the same field of consciousness that binds every mind. When they look at the stars, they'll feel something, a quiet pull, as if the universe itself is whispering your name back. Because it is. Every thought leaves an echo. Every life leaves an imprint. We're all woven into the same invisible fabric, and nothing that's woven can truly be lost. The light begins to fade, not into darkness, but into clarity. You feel weight again, heartbeat again, or maybe a new rhythm altogether. It doesn't matter where you'll wake, in a body, in a dream, or somewhere beyond language, because now you understand what the 7 minutes really are. They're not the end of life. They're life revealing its real nature, the moment where you finally see that you were never just one thing. You were always part of everything. So when your time comes, and the world fades into silence, remember this. You won't be alone. You'll be surrounded by everything you've ever loved, by every memory, every heartbeat, every possibility. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember this story. Because who knows? Maybe you're already living your 7 minutes right now. Maybe every breath is part of the review, every choice, a chance to rewrite it. So live like you're remembering, not waiting. Because in the end, that's all any of us ever do. We remember ourselves home. Tell me your city and your time in the comments. Maybe we're remembering the same moment, from different corners of the world.